Namaskar everyone and welcome back to Gyanonymous School. Jai Hind. In our previous lecture, we explored how criminological thinking evolved from supernatural explanation to scientific inquiry. We were discussing on UGC NET Criminology part 3 of syllabus, that is unit 3 of syllabus. We discussed about in the last part 2, we discussed the demonological school, the classical school, the neoclassical school, and finally the positive school. Actually in part 1 we have discussed about these schools in lecture 3. It introduced various scientific methods to criminology. Now we will continue that journey of ours. This lecture is extremely important. Actually, every lecture is important from criminological point of view, because this lecture is important actually because it examines one of the biggest questions in criminology. Today we are going to examine some questions like, is crime determined by where people live? Whether the geography determines crime? Whether if people come from a certain geographical area, whether he or she has more chances to be criminal. Another question can be, can biology actually influence criminal behavior? Next question can be, can poverty or economic inequality can increase crime? Other questions can be, is crime always the result of many interacting factors like we have discussed in other questions about geography, biological influence, or poverty or economic inequality? Is crime result of all these interacting factors? So now we shall examine these 4 major perspectives that attempted to answer the questions that I have just asked you. So let's begin. So before we begin, I would like to request my viewers kindly switch to 1.5x if you are watching this when I am not live. So if you are watching this video for better experience, please do watch on 1.5x. So let's begin. Begin with Cartographic School. We have gone with classical school. First, we have gone with Demonological School, then we have gone with Classical School, then Neoclassical School of Criminology, and after that, number 4, we have discussed about which school? Do you remember? In number 4, we have discussed about Positivist School of Criminology. Now we are going to discuss about Cartographic School. So let's go with some historical background with Cartographic School. The first school we discussed today, actually this is the Cartographic School. It is also called Geographical School of Criminology. So you should remember that Cartographic School is also called Geographical School of Criminology. Unlike earlier scholars who mainly focused on individuals, sometimes criminologists actually ask different questions like why do some places experience more crime than other? It actually happens. We see in whatever country it may be, you can see, or whatever state may be, you can see that some places experience more crime than other. So why it happens? So here's the answer. Which school of criminology examines the answer? That is Cartographic School or Geographical School of Criminology. So this is actually one of the earliest attempt to study crime statistically, the cartographic method. So main scholars of Cartographic School who introduced the cartographic method was Adolphe Quetelet, and Henri Michel Gury. Adolphe Quetelet and Henri Michel Gury. I just remember their name as AQAMZ. You can remember them because it will be MCQ. So if you don't remember the full name, no problem. If you remember the abbreviation, Cartographic School, AQAMZ, that is Adolphe Quetelet and Henri Michel Gury. So the main ideas of Cartographic School are like they collected crime statistics from different regions and to their surprise, actually, they found that crime was not actually randomly distributed. Instead, they found that certain places consistently experience higher crime rates. This is very important. They have found that the proponents and early proponents of cartographic school, they found that certain places consistently experience larger crime rates or higher crime rates. They observed a relationship of crime and population density, between crime and climate, also crime and education, in between crime and poverty, urbanization and crime. They try to establish some relations between these factors, also with seasonal variation and crime, about unemployment or employment and crime. So they try to observe the relationship with crime and these parameters like employment or unemployment, seasonal variation, urbanization, poverty, education, climate change, population density, etc. So crime therefore showed geographical patterns. They found that crime actually showed some kind of geographical patterns. Some locality showed more or higher number of criminal activities, and other geographical areas showed lower number of criminal activities. So these factors actually, or these parameters actually impact crime, and relationship between crime and these factors actually varies from geography to geography. So their contributions was actually on certain domains like on birth of criminal statistics, on crime mapping. Today we see the predictive policing or predictive criminology. The crime mapping is much widely used, particularly with the help of AI and big data analysis. So crime mapping has origination in it originated from cartographic school. Geographical profiling, in today's time, they use GIS mapping to map crime data with various geographical profiles. Predictive policing I have already mentioned, and GIS based crime analysis. So these all connect to modern policing. For simple example, like we can say that today police department actually use crime mapping software to identify crime hotspot. Police actually analyze these crime maps to distribute their patrols wherever there are more, in which area they feel or they see there are more possibility of crime, or there are more crime data density, there more police is deployed, or more traffic, or even more police patrol is deployed. So this is what cartographic or geographical school is in simple terms, and it also has some criticisms like all the schools of criminology, like correlation is not a causation actually. So it just correlate crime with various factors with geography, but this school does not explain the cause of crime. This is very important criticism. Geography alone, it doesn't explain crime. We need to consider other factors like why. We need to answer, if you need to answer the question why, we need to go through the other geographical or population factors like psychological factors, even socio-economic factors for that particular geography. Why from that particular geographical area there are a higher number of crimes. So geographical school does not explain that, it just gives us statistics. This school also ignores psychology, it ignores biology, also it ignores individual motivation. It just goes with various data, statistics, and represent the crime data from a geographical point of view. So this is what cartographic school or geographical school of criminology. So this is very important from exam point of view, and you should remember the main proponents or main scholar of geographical school. What I said, AQAMZ, that is Adolf Quetelet and Andre Michel Curie. AQAMZ, you just remember it, AQAMZ. Now from Cartographic School, let's move to another school, that is Biological School. We now enter perhaps the most controversial chapter in criminology. Biological School actually is the most controversial school. We have already read about this school, but it was actually similar or sometimes same to the Positivist school, but now we are studying the same in Biological School of Cesar Lombroso. Lombroso, as we know, who is Lombroso? Who is Lombroso? Do you remember? If you would have seen the last lecture, probably you would have remembered. In classical theory of criminology, neoclassical school of criminology, and positive school of criminology, in that lecture I have explained who is Cesar Lombroso. So Lombroso is known as father of modern criminology. You should remember who is the father of modern criminology. Actually, I find it funny. Everywhere there is one father of every subject. So here is one is father of criminology or classical criminology. Who is he? He is Cesar Beccaria. And father of modern criminology. Who is father of modern criminology? He is Cesar Lombroso. So Lombroso actually argued that some offenders are born criminals. So Cesar Lombroso in Biological School, he actually argued that some criminals are what? Born criminals. So at the first instance, we find it difficult to digest how can criminals be born criminals. But at such time, when there was no scientific development, Lombroso just tried it. Okay, we just need to read it from historical point of view. No need to go so deep into it. But just think it as a first evidence-based scientific study in criminology. So he argued offenders are as born criminals. For him, criminals could be identified through certain physical characteristics. So I asked this question in your last lecture, that is part 1 of this lecture, that atavism. What is atavism? The concept of atavism, it suggested that some individuals actually displayed primitive evolutionary traits. So answer to the questions that I have asked in the last lecture, the concept of atavism suggested by Cesar Lombroso, it suggests that some individuals display primitive evolutionary trait. So atavist people or atavism is individuals displaying of primitive evolutionary traits. It can be Lombroso as described. Some characters can be large jaws, long arms, like sloping forehead, or particularly large ears, or asymmetric facial structure. So these all characters actually explain that these all characters actually reflect 19th century thinking about whatever they thought, or they thought science in such a way. But even though it's not accepted in modern science, it is just written as scientific history of modern criminology. So their contribution are not actually in the line of their research, but just their contribution is that they started the scientific observation. They studied with various prison research or empirical method. Or Lombroso and his friends first, or his students first, used the empirical method, and they had gone with medical approach. So this is what Biological School or Positivist School of Cesar Lombroso, and he explained with the concept of atavism. So atavism, there can be question in exam, UGC NET, who propounded the concept of atavism. So here comes Cesar Lombroso, and atavism is the concept of individuals displaying primitive evolutionary traits. So that is what Biological School of Cesar Lombroso. It is with whole lot of criticism. This school actually entirely rejected. Okay, not this school actually. Lombroso's theory is actually entirely rejected because it modern criminology actually rejects biological determinism. It actually rejects biological determinism. You can determine someone whether he is going to be, or he is, or if he is going to be a criminal because of his biological attires, because of his large ears, or because of his asymmetric facial structure, or maybe because of his long arms, large jaws. Oh no, my god, this is impossible. But at that time they thought it's in that way, and it is having with very much bias. It is, I think, from my point of view, it is one kind of a racial theory. Okay, it is with weak methodology. If we look from modern scientific research in criminology, we find that Lombroso's methodology was very weak. His sample size was very small. In fact, he had his samples all from the prison. So there's the questions of what about the person who live outside the prison. He just collected samples from the prison itself. So what about the people in prison? Just a very small number of people lives. So what about the other people who are not convicted, who are out there, and what about them? What about public in general? So this biological theory of Lombroso doesn't explain such a point of view, and it also ignores various social influences. So this is what the criticism of Cesar Lombroso's positivist school or biological school. Nevertheless, we should go through his theory and his atavism concept from the scientific historical point of view, that this theory was the beginning of modern scientific criminological research, and therefore Cesar Lombroso is called father of modern criminology. So let's move ahead with another school. There is a lot more school in criminology. You will be bored. In the syllabus of UGC NET, there is very less number of school. But if you want to study criminology, if you are interested in criminology, you will be like, oh my god, so many schools. There are 17, 18 school minimum. I have studied at least 17, 18 school of criminology. My god. So anyway, let's go to the constitutional school. So after the positivist school, later researchers actually tried to argue that not only facial appearance but also overall body constitution could be influential in various behavior which may lead to crime, or which may be leading to criminal behavior. So the proponents were like Ernest Kretschmer, Ernest Kretschmer. The proponent of biological this school, constitutional school, is Ernest Kretschmer. We have to remember, when the word constitutional school comes, it just comes after the biological school. So we must not, I repeat, we must not confuse it with the law and constitution. We must not confuse it with constitutional law. So when it comes constitutional school, learners should understand that this is about constitution of body parts. Okay, it is about various behavioral characteristics or bodily characteristics, not about law and constitution. Okay, so don't be confused with the name of constitutional school. When we go with the constitutional school, it actually about bodily constitution. Okay, so Ernest Kretschmer, he is the um, proponent of this school. He explained various body types like picnic, athletic, aesthetic, or aesthetic is also called leptosomic, and various behavioral characteristics. On the other hand, very important from exam perspective, another proponent, that is William Herbert Sheldon. We should remember William Sheldon's various types, also called somatotypes. this is very much important from exam points of view. So he gone with various somatotypes, that is endomorph, mesomorph, ectomorph. So what are they? Endomorph, mesomorphs, ectomorph. It believes that mesomorphs are more likely to display aggressive behavior. Mesomorphs are those with various heavily built up bodies. On the other hand, endomorph and ectomorph are respectively very thin body and with very fat body. So therefore the mesomorphs who go with built up body, they, according to William Sheldon, they are more likely to display various aggressive behavior. So this is what cartographic school in simple terms, but it is also with various criticisms. Like modern science, actually modern science doesn't accept that body type alone can determine criminality. It's impossible actually. If you are a rational person, if you are a grown-up learned person, you will also know that how can you differentiate someone whether he will be criminal or not. How can you profile someone that he is a built-up person and therefore he will be a criminal minded person? No way. According to this school, these mesomorphs, every regularly gym going persons who is going to, if everyone going to gym for some years, definitely he will have a built-up body, he will have a built-up structure. And what does it mean? That means every regularly gym going person is to be criminals or criminal minded? No way, that's not possible. So this theory is entirely rejected because simply body type alone it can't determine criminality. Criminality also have various interaction with genetics, with family, with society, education, opportunity, and lot more factors. Okay, so this school also entirely rejected. We are just reading it from historical point of view. So no need to go into deeper research into such schools. Just you understand that there is also a school which is called Cartographic School, and don't confuse, sorry, there is also a school that is called Constitutional School, and don't confuse it with Constitutional school with the law and constitution. It is not about law and constitution. Actually, I am confused. Not I am now. I was confused at the beginning. Wow, constitutional school means the name as it goes. It should be about law and constitution, but no, this is not correct. It goes with body types and body constitutions. It goes with, you remember just one theory, that is William Sheldon's somatotype theories, endomorph, mesomorph, and ectomorphs theory, where mesomorphs are more likely to display aggressive behavior according to somatotype or according to William Sheldon, but this is not true. Okay, so this is what constitutional school after the biological school. Okay, next come to another school, that is hereditary traits, or let's go to, this is not actually school or kind of school, but it is called traits. Okay, what is called hereditary traits. It can like explain, can criminal behavior be inherited? Second, this is just a question. Okay, it can answer, the hereditary trait actually answer some questions, like what do you think, the criminal behavior can be inherited? If someone is criminal and his offspring, his son or daughter, is more likely, there is a little bit more possibility that his son or daughter would be also kind of going in that way. So early family studies were done by Richard Dugdale. He done such early family studies, with Zeux's family and other theorists like Henry Goddard. They studied with some kind of Kalikak family. They explain various findings, and there are various criticisms regarding these hereditary traits. We don't need to go very deep into it, but we need to just learn that modern criminology actually says that genes actually may influence temperament or certain predispositions, but they even do not determine criminal behavior. So we must remember that in criminal behavior, the most influential factor is the environmental factor, the socio-economic factor, and the environment around that person. This is the most crucial and most influential factor. Okay, but there can be some influence, can be some genetic influence too, but this is not so. Genetic influence can be like, it can influence some temperament, or maybe due to lack of certain kind of neurotransmitter, or not, I would say lack, but the amount, if the amount of such neurotransmitter is less, there may be some variation in temperaments. But even in such condition also, it is not to be said that that person with little or with some relatively less neurotransmitter would be would going to criminal activities more often, or most likely. No, it's even not true. So there are various research going on how genes may influence temperament, but through this temperament people can go to criminal behavior. But a lot more research are going on, but there is no relation between genes and criminal behavior. Yes, there can be from genes, it can be influence on temperament, and after temperament people can go to criminal behavior. So temperament may be due to other factors too, not only gene. Okay, so we must remember that other influence, like as I have told, socio-economic influence and environmental influence are more crucial than this gene factor. So this is what hereditary trait is. There is another theory related to biological school, what is called endocrine gland theory. I talked about neurotransmitters and hormones, as in the earlier school, or earlier hereditary theory, or in hereditary trait. Now there is another theory, that is endocrine gland theory. What is it? Scientists actually investigated whether some hormonal imbalance can also influence criminal behavior. Scientists are still researching on that, like how hormonal imbalance can influence criminal behavior. They discuss like how hormones from thyroid glands, pituitary glands, adrenal glands, or other sex hair hormones can also influence criminal behavior if such hormones are imbalanced. So it explains that hormones actually may influence aggression, impulsivity, and even regulation. Hormone, not I would say may, but I have seen from my practical examples that hormones actually influence on aggression. It influence on impulsivity, and due to hormone there are various emotional regulation also take place. Okay, but even though they can influence such activities like aggression, impulsivity, or emotional regulation, this cannot explain crime. If someone having aggressive behavior, it is not that he is actually going to commit crime. We have seen most heinous crime are committed by very non-aggressive people. Okay, even impulsive people are not so much into crime. Okay, there can be emotional dysregulation. It can lead to some psychological problem, and it doesn't determine that he or she would actually go and commit some crime. So in modern criminology, it actually adopts a biosocial perspective than a simple biological perspective, like we have discussed on this endocrine gland theory, where hormonal imbalance or various glands like thyroid gland, pituitary, adrenal, or other sex hormone, from where from the glands where such hormones are secreted, imbalance in such amount of such hormones would lead to crime. No. So this theory can later be said that biosocial perspective, or various biosocial and cognitive effects, and the interaction between biology and environment, it actually impacts criminal behavior. So that is what endocrine gland theory of criminology. Coming to now another theory, that is, or some theories like economic theories of crime. So as we discussed biological theories of crime, we have various discussed from Cesar Lombroso to hereditary trait to the latest endocrine gland theory. Now let's move into how economics and economic factors actually influence crime. Economist theories argues that crime is influenced by actually many factors like poverty, unemployment, relative deprivation, income inequality, and lack of opportunity. And this is very difficult to counter them. Okay, like the biological theory, endocrine gland theory, or the school of hereditary traits. People can argue them. Okay, scientifically they are not proof, so people can argue. Critics can argue them that this is not true actually. But these could the economic theories like how poverty impacts crime, unemployment or relative deprivation, income inequality, lack of opportunity, these actually impacts criminal behavior. Okay, but we must not say that whoever is in poverty, he is actually likely to be doing deviant activity. No, this is also not true. Or whoever is unemployed, he is going to in such a deviant way. No, this is not. But the possibility or the probability of doing so is more likely. Okay, so in such situations like income inequality or relative deprivations, we must say that there are certain probabilities that deviant behavior may occur. So here we can mention theories like Karl Marx or Marxist theory of critical criminology, which explain various conflict perspective on income inequality or relative deprivation, even on lack of opportunity or unemployment. He says that the crime may emerge from various structural inequalities and unequal access to resources. Actually, in critical criminology, Karl Marx and later proponents, they explained about various structural inequalities and unequal access to resources, which can actually lead to crime. So these crimes can be simple: theft, robbery, property crimes, illegal market crimes, maybe organized crime even. Okay. So economic hardship is one factor among many others which can actually take someone to deviant behavior. But this is just one of the many factors. It is not that just economic hardship. If someone is facing economic hardship, he or she will go towards criminal behavior. No way. This is one of the many socio-economic and socio-biological factors which can influence or which may influence criminal behavior of a particular person. Okay. So this is what are economic theories of crime. Let's come to another theory, that is multiple factor theory of crime. What is multiple factor theory? This theory actually represent one of the most balanced approach. The multiple factor theory is not just dependent, as the name goes, it is not dependent on single theory. It doesn't depend on biology or sociology or economics only. So here no single factor causes crime. In this theory, it is believed that no single factor is responsible for crime. Crime can result from interaction of many factors like biological factors, psychological factors, family factors, peer pressure. There can be some educational deprivation, maybe economy, neighborhood, culture, various opportunity or lack of opportunity. So multiple factor theory integrate these all the factors, that from lack of opportunity to various cultural influence or subculture that we will read on the later part of our lectures. There are some neighborhood influences or economical pressure in that particular area, maybe due to lack of education, school dropouts, due to peer pressures and unstable family environments. There even can be various psychological factors, including various biological factors. So all these combined, all these interacting together can actually make someone to go to a deviant way. Some examples like that: two children growing up in poverty, and one becomes a, let's say, successful teacher of any subject, a university professor one becomes, and another, on the other hand, he joins a organized crime group. So let's say if we have multiple example of that. So if poverty alone caused crime, both should have been offender. If there is poverty and poverty is the root cause of crime, the both offspring of that particular parents would have been criminals. One actually becomes a successful professor in a university, and what another becomes a serial offender. He joins a criminal gang. So it actually clearly demonstrate that not only poverty, not only biological factor, not only economic factor, not only other factors like culture, neighborhood, economy, education, etc., multiple factors interact, and multiple factors influence differently to each other's life. To everyone's life is influenced by, everyone reacts differently to these multiple factors, like towards culture, opportunity, neighborhood, education, peers, family. When someone is interacting with them, everyone reacts differently and everyone chooses their own part. So clearly multiple influences actually interact differently in each other's personal life. So this is mostly, we have finished the main content of our today's lecture. We have gone with various schools and some theories of criminology. From UGC NET point of view, we have some important things to remember from today's part 2 of this UGC NET Criminology Unit 3 lecture, that is about Cartographic School. Cartographic School is what? It is about geography and crime distribution. Lombroso, he come up with the concept of born criminal and atavism. Then Kretschmer, he got into the body constitution school. And then there is Sheldon or William Sheldon. He has gone with somatotype, various type of somatotypes. And next we have studied about hereditary theory, about family studies. Next we have gone with endocrine gland theory, about hormones and behaviors. Later on we have studied about economic theory, about poverty, inequality, unemployment from the lens of critical criminology, or from the lens of Karl Marx also. So finally we have gone with a more successful theory, that is multiple factor theory, where it is said that crime has not a single cause. It is not due to biology, it's not due to genes, it's not only due to society or environment or economic factor, or not only due to education and any factor, any single factor. It is just combination of all the factors and how it influences a certain individual. So this is what multiple factor theory, which is more successful than any other single theory to explain the criminal behavior in the society. So as there can be certain questions like I will ask you one questions before today's ending of this lecture. I would like to ask you, please type in the comment box, what do you mean by Italian School of Criminology? We have almost covered all the important school of criminology. Later on we will go with various theories of criminology. The important and basic school of criminology we have covered in this two parts of lecture 3, that is unit 3 of UGC NET Criminology syllabus. So there is not mentioned what is Italian school, but in exam they may ask something called Italian school. one of the schools I have told you, it is also called Italian School of Criminology. So please mention me in the comment box which school is also called Italian School of Criminology. I repeat the question, which school of criminology is also called Italian School of Criminology? Read it well and answer me in the comment box, please. So that is today's lecture. It has taken us from various maps, geographical maps of crime, from statistics to biology to hereditary hormones, economics, and finally the modern understanding of crime with multiple factor theory. Actually, even though we have studied various historical criminological school like biological school of Cesar Lombroso and even hereditary trait theory also, it teaches us an important lesson. Every school actually contributed valuable insight into criminology, even though none of the school individually provide complete explanation on its own, but every school contributed something into it, or every school at least initiated something into it, like the biological theory or positive school of criminology, biological school or positive school of criminology by Cesar Lombroso. Even though his theory is entirely rejected, but it introduced to the scientific criminology. It introduced to the evidence-based research methods or evidence-based studies into criminology. So this school therefore is very important from criminological point of view, from the scientific research of criminology. So in next lecture, that is in part 3 of criminology live lecture 3, we will explore various psychological and sociological dimensions of crime through psychoanalytical theory, through various psychopathic personality, various theories like anomia theory, strain theory, cultural conflict theory, and even about subcultural theory and others. So these theories actually remain among the most important and frequently asked topics in frequently asked questions are coming from these topics, okay, in UGC NET Criminology examination. Anyway, if you find this lecture useful, please like the video, subscribe to Gyanonymous channel, and share it to your fellow criminology students and UGC NET aspirants. And if you like this video, I would like to suggest you that please do watch in 1.5x. I actually don't edit videos because I believe more on content than on editing stuff, so that whoever interested in criminology, he will come and watch my videos. That's all, maybe after 10 years. Anyway, thank you for joining me today. I will see you in part 3. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram.